Welcome back to another episode of the Oak and Rock Fatherhood YouTube channel. I am your host, Zachary Small from thefamilyalpha.com and fraternityofexcellence.com. I'm joined by the permanent co-host, co-founder, co-partner, whatever you want to call it, Anthony Migliorino from peacefulfathers.com. Anthony, great to see you again. Today, we are joined by the Joe Rooney, the founder and creator at Marlowe Caulfield and the founder and creator at the Meaningcast podcast, which we were recently on. We had an awesome discussion with Joe, and in there we heard a story about his development, where he came from to become the man he is today, the obstacles overcome, the mindset he had to have to improve, and we really wanted to get him on here to have the conversation about that. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate you having me on today, and thanks for coming on Meaningcast a couple days ago. Really appreciate it.
Hey, it's a win-win, man. We're all winning. Anthony, how you doing, brother?
I am doing excellent. Good to see you again, Joe. Do I got a little bit of an echo?
No, you're perfect, man. Time to roll. All right, so Marlowe Caulfield, the Meaningcast. I'm dropping all these titles and names, but who is Joe Rooney, and what are you doing in the world?
Yeah, so Joe Rooney is just a regular guy like Zach and Anthony and all the guys and gals who get a chance to tune in, right? I work, I have a family, but I've learned over the past couple of years in particular how to really amplify my own talents, kind of dig deep into the essence of who I am and live a little bit more authentically. So I think that's why I'm here, is to speak about how I've been able to step out into that more than, exclusively focusing on how do I make a paycheck. So I'm happy to be able to share that story.
Oh, that's awesome. And on Marlowe and Caulfield, you talk about helping individuals optimize their life. And we deal with a lot of individuals. I've worked with Zuby, guys who are looking to optimize. They're going to the music sector, but then they find their way to helping other individuals. Guys like Cernovich, coming from the political angle, but always bringing it, how can I help people? Phil Foster, same thing, from Phil Foster Fitness. So with you, what is it that brought you to where you are, to wanting to help others? Because this isn't just about your journey. It's not about optimizing just your life. You had to optimize you, and now you want to help others do the same. So what bridged that gap? And basically, how did you get to where you are, with the family, with the job, with the podcast, with the blog? How are you balancing all this, man?
Well, dedication, really. There's a lot of time in the day if you maximize it. And if you don't value your time, you're not going to get anything done. So it does seem like a lot, but for me, it's pretty manageable. I'll start there, Zach, with how I get all this done. I get up in the morning, I get a workout in, I get a run in, I spend time with God. And then by 6:30, 7 o'clock, I'm ready to roll with the family, and I'm plugged into the day job. And after the kids go to bed, muscle out some more blogging, video editing, booking podcast guests. So it's a long day, but it's one without a lot of fluff. As some of my friends really like to say, and I've adopted this saying, there is no time for fluff, people. So that's how I do it. Just eliminate the fluff. And, you threw a couple other things in there about, what I'm doing, who I am. Where do you want to start, Zach? Like, what's...
You let me know. So what started the catalyst from going from operating, I'm not going to say head in the sand. I don't really know where your starting point was, but not being awake, unplugged, whatever you want to call, to unplugging. Let's start there. What opened your eyes to what was going on at large and making you want to make yourself a priority?
Yeah, so I think my eyes were open for quite a long time, going back to like 2009, and but they were tunnel vision, right? I would peek out into the world, and I was really focused on applying myself on myself. I was building my own kingdom, and I was able to gratify some of my desires and my natural tendencies to help people through my work. I had leadership roles traditionally. What happened, though, was when I moved into larger companies, I used to work really exclusively for small local companies. I started working for hyper growth tech firms and large tech companies. And as the ability to lead people left me, because I was in a larger company and I had to climb a ladder, which was fine. I was used to climbing ladders, but they were smaller ladders in smaller companies, and you can get up to the, near the top of that ladder in a couple months or a year, right? These were longer roads to haul to get to that leadership role where I could pour myself into other people at work. And since I wasn't doing that for a long time, it was not tapping into something that was really crucial to me, which was building up other people. I'm a sales professional. Since I started in sales, I've been working with people, with salespeople. Early leaders recognize my ability to train, teach, and lead people. I have a lot of passion for success. As I told you about how I get things done. I'm pretty intense in terms of I'm not gonna lose, right? I'm gonna take advantage of every opportunity. But as an individual contributor, which is what I was asked to be exclusively, and to really not look at other opportunities, it took a burden on me emotionally, right? There was something in me that wasn't being fulfilled. And a couple years ago, about 3 or 4 months before the lockdowns happened in September of 2019, I found myself looking for a new opportunity. And I wasn't sure what that was. And I came across some people on Twitter, yourself included, Zac, who I started to look at as role models, really, right? Where am I going to start applying myself and how am I going to do it? And I went ahead and got back into a tech individual contributor role. And once again, kind of landed into the same funk. I didn't really notice that.
So when you first started and you made the decision, all right, I want to start improving things, that brought you to Twitter to connecting with individuals. Like you said, you found my work, you found some guys' work, but then you went back and fell into a funk.
Yeah.
So how did you get the inspiration to go find it, but then you went right back to where you came from and lost it?
Yeah, because listen, it's I'll be honest, unfortunately, sometimes you need a big kick in the ass, right? And the kick in the ass I got in September of 2019, I guess wasn't big enough, or the world hadn't broken down enough, quite honestly, where I had felt comfortable to move, right? Because I don't think the kick was much different when I got into that new role, but the world had changed so much that I was able to see the opportunities a lot more clearly. So when I was following you and the Prometheus and Josh Lysick and a bunch of other names that I could mention on Twitter, and I'm sure you're familiar with them, people getting after it, building their own businesses online, taking a certain amount of, large amount of autonomy in terms of how they're going to make a living and make their way in this world. It wasn't enough for me to, really focus on that. I went back to the W-2. Being in the tech world, you get paid pretty well. And, I went back to it. So I went back to what was comfortable, which was a nice paycheck. But what wasn't comfortable was the situation I found myself in again, which was individual contributor, not a very clear path to getting a leadership role. And that funk hit in about 6 months after that role. I didn't leave that job. I'm still with the same company. That company was a high growth startup that was acquired. Part of my growth here has been staying with that company and not letting the discomfort of not getting exactly what I want out of the job make me into, an anxious, nervous mess, where I was really looking for something in the immediate to gratify me. I learned that with the lockdown that there were opportunities, and if I was patient, I could ease my way into them. And the best way to do that would be to, just keep kicking butt at my job and take a little bit more satisfaction in what I'm doing, and what I'm contributing, and try to get what I was looking for in terms of pour myself into other people elsewhere.
So I have a question. Joe, how impactful do you think it is to be in a mindset where, and this is something that I had to go through as a man, probably similar to what I imagine you went through. How important is it to be around people, other men who are motivating you, who are bringing you to a higher spot? And what does that look like before you get there? Because I know with myself, there was a lot of inner work, things I had to do to fix who I was, in order to not feel like I didn't fit in, right? I couldn't get to those levels. And there became a point where I said, you know what, I am doing well. I'm doing good. I need to be around other men who can propel me even further. So did you go through a moment like that?
Oh yeah. Part of, that's a really great question, Anthony. And I can relate to that as well. part of not feeling the vibe, I'd say, at these larger companies was not fitting in as well, right? So I definitely had that. So getting right to your question about how important is it to be around other men, it was crucial. I started building in the fall of last year, so 2020, and I was building, right? I was building Marlowe and Caulfield. I was blogging more. I started to get up early religiously and write every day. I was blogging every day, and I wasn't moving fast, and I wasn't really getting deep. Right? These are surface things. These are things that I had been doing for a while, and these were things that weren't going to propel me, but I was rekindling something inside me, which was creativity and, a consistency of building something outside of work. And in about January of 2020, I came across a men's group. I was invited to join a men's group. I went to that men's group, and that was really the catalyst to the growth, right? I saw on Twitter yesterday, somebody said, "Hey guys, if you're anxious and depressed, go build something massive and meaningful." And that's the recipe that I took for the better part of a year and a half. But it really was not until I started to talk with other men, and more so than that, Anthony, work on myself and work on myself in front of other men, not taking information at the men's group, going to my home and trying to apply it in my mind. No, the actual dialogue and the back and forth between men and opening up to each other, it is the release that I need it. And I really believe that it's the antidote to the release a lot of people need to start to fit in, right? I don't know what your situation was, Anthony, but there's a lot of baggage, and the only way to let it go is to speak it. The word is powerful, and I've come to know and believe that, and I'm actually really big on continuing to develop that muscle to be vulnerable in front of guys and to develop real deep, meaningful relationships with other men.
Yeah, well, I think there's this illusion that we have that how men are supposed to succeed or get achievement, right? We always hear that you need to hit rock bottom, and that's when you start to grow. But that's not what happened with me, right? I did have to hit a bottom to a certain point. But when I started to grow is when I started to get into reps and I started to make improvement. It wasn't the bottom, it was the process of going through it, right? That journey. And that's, I think, something important for men to understand, right? You're not going to fuck up and have all these mistakes, hit bottom, and then say, okay, now it's, now I'm good. I'm going to get better. You have to do a lot of work to be around other men who are doing work, right there. And there's results, there's receipts that we need to show to, and it's not financial receipts. I mean it, and in a way where, we're expanding who we are as men. We're showing confidence. We're showing calmness. We're showing leadership skills. We're showing we're able to adapt and overcome when things are tough, right? We're not getting dragged down. So that was definitely something, that I had to work past. I thought that, if I'm gonna get smashed and beaten down, then there's only one way to go is up. But sometimes that's not true, right? Sometimes men get stuck down and they don't have the power to find that voice, to find that energy. So, it's important. And I think, what made you crawl from out of that cellar, that darkness, to get around other men who were adding value to your life? I mean, was there anything specific? You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. The wife's upstairs, and I want to get the headphones on. So yeah. So we good, guys?
Yep.
Yeah. So the thing that really started to push me forward and got to get me in the men's group was I've been trying to find a place for my faith and a community for my faith, and I found something in January. And a part of that was being introduced to the men's group that was a part of that church. And that was really a catalyst for me. But to your point, that the actual going to the group was not enough. I was looking at people who were former former addicts in jail, gang members, really generational addicts, people that just had really bad stories. And when you talk about bottom, Anthony, I spent a lot of time during my first 6 months in that men's group watching these guys and having everything internal, and saying, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. And I just wanted to muscle through it by myself. And it wasn't until I started to bare my soul to these guys and, admit how broken I was in areas, that I started to grow. And I remember one of the leaders of the men's group, I called him up after one of the weekly meetings, and I said, I'm just really frustrated because I look at so-and-so and so-and-so and all the great things happening in their life. And these guys were like way worse than I am. And how can I not get past this hump? And he said, Joe, you got to really share yourself, right? Be authentic, and these guys will open up to you too. And it took me a few more weeks still, right? I mean, it is hard, guys. So everybody out here who's listening to this and is saying this is weird, it is, right? So let's all get weird, because it's healthy, right? It's hard, it's weird. Let's call it what it is, but it shouldn't be weird once you develop that muscle. So I hope that answered your question, Anthony. I mean, that was really the catalyst. The men's group kind of helped me getting into finding a good church, that was building me and people up in the community. It was really outward focused rather than inward focused, which was my experience before. So seeing a community that was thriving and vibrant was really exciting to me. That's what got me involved in the men's group, and being in the men's group and seeing different people and then eventually sharing myself, which I'm still getting better at, is really what's moving me forward.
One of the things that many men go through is imposter syndrome in this process of trying to find their way and find their voice. And when they get to a certain status in the group, they're like, well, I don't belong here. I don't fit in. I'm not worthy enough, whatever their self-talk is. That imposter syndrome, sometimes it keeps them from going to the next level or from facing the fact that, like you said, you went inside and like, all right, did you find in the men's group, knowing that you were around other individuals who had failed? You said gang members, you said drug addicts, these people who are addicted to things, these people who made poor life choices, when they shared how their screw ups or bad decisions happened, did that give you permission to be like, all right, these guys aren't perfect, they're just working to be better? Is that something that helped you on your journey? And the reason I ask is because a lot of other men, they're in a group and nobody wants to admit their failure. They want to appear as successful, but that prevents the growth from occurring.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wish that I would have been able to turn around and share with these gentlemen more quickly, right? About, my experiences that were, just like theirs, just, had a different name attached to them, right? So I don't know if I think I felt imposter syndrome in these tech companies when I was looking to be somebody and they were looking for me to be somebody else, right? I think that's where I was really not feeling like I was being myself, right? I was feeling like I was trying to fit in at every turn. But with the men's group, I really did feel welcome and at home. It was me that wasn't allowing myself to fully step in, right? I needed to overcome something, and I can't put my finger on it, but I can tell you I think I've said this 4 or 5 times, and I hate to beat a dead horse. You need to open up to other men. It is the antidote. I was in a men's leadership group. It's part of church. It's just a 6-week thing. I'm not like addicted to men's groups where I'm going all the time, every night and every day. But now there's
That's
one
exactly
night a week.
what an addict would say.
Exactly. Now there's one night a week I go to a men's group for an hour, and then at church the pastor spun up a leadership group, and he was talking about this very topic as the beginning of the 6-week session. He shared that just recently he had sat around with a bunch of pastors, and he committed that he wasn't going to, pretend everything was all right. And they broke him up into twos, and he poured his soul out to somebody. And he talked about how that was something that turned a corner for him. Now, this is 4 or 5 weeks ago. I've been doing this for the better part of a year, guys. And that was another catalyst for me to go deeper. So I'm always trying to go deeper, share more, not for status, not for anything else, but because people need to hear it, right? It's not just for me. When I share my problems, I'm letting somebody else know that they're okay because maybe they didn't say that yet, or maybe they haven't. Maybe it's something new in their mind, right? And so it's not just about sharing it to release something in you, it's to open up something in somebody else. So when the pastor was able to share that story, boom, it was I'd already figured out that I needed to be vulnerable. It helped me go deeper. So it's constantly sharing, constantly being honest with people, and having real conversations with men, right?
Yeah, and this is something that's not too normal in society. Right. Me and Zach talk about this all the time. The conversations on fatherhood, how that's growing and expanding. And, even the conversations of supporting men, right? Supporting fathers, supporting masculinity. Um, it's something that's happening. And I think it needs to happen. We continue to have these important, uncomfortable conversations. Why? And I want to get your answer to this question, and also yours, Zach. Why do you think so many men are hesitant to find their voice or get in these groups and speak up and be a part of what's going on?
Zach, why don't you go first? I want to hear from you, bud.
No, yeah, I'll pave the path for you.
Yeah.
Listen, when I see this and we have this discussion, it's immediate the fear of confirming that they're not a man, they're not strong enough, they're not smart enough. It's fear. They don't.
Yep.
What is it? It's better to have someone think you're dumb than to open your mouth and confirm it. I believe that's the situation. I think these men are intimidated to reach out, speak up, say something, connect to the guy, and like, oh, you're wrong, dude. You're weak and you're not all these things that you think you are. And you can play the game in your head. I'm the Rambo, I'm the hero, I'm these things until someone else confirms that you're not. Well, if you don't engage another man, you don't have to worry about them highlighting your weaknesses. But literally in FOE, the hardest thing for men to do is to come in and start opening up. It happened last night on our Zoom. New guys showed up. The first thing we did, hey, you, by name. I want to see you on camera. Let's talk. 2 new men in the group last night turned the cameras on, started talking. Their growth, I guarantee you, within the next amount of time they're in that group, will be so much further than if they were to have hidden in the corner and waited to get comfortable to share with the men. Well, now I know what they look like. I know what they sound like. I know what their goals are. And I know how I can help them. And so do all the other men that were in that group. So now that we know them and we see them, we can work with them. And to your point on these guys not speaking up, that's the biggest disservice they're doing to themselves. And that's why when I was asking Joe, I really wanted to know what held you back, because how can we help men do that faster?
Yeah, and I'm going to just add a little bit of peanut butter and jelly on top of the bread you laid down for me, right? It's fear, but what is it fear of? For me, it was fear of being rejected. And even though I was in a group of people that in no way, shape, or form, there's absolutely no chance I could be rejected from this. I mean, virtually no chance that I could be rejected from this group. But I had 40 years of fearing rejection, right? Fearing the punishment of authority figures in my life. And I had cultivated a really careful a really careful way of, sharing my persona with people, where I was very cautious about doing anything that would have me be on the outside, because just naturally being who I am, I was on the outside anyway, right? I was always into different things. I was a kid who listened to rap and rock and people couldn't understand it, right? So, you don't fit in anywhere, right? So it was those types of experiences from, the authority figures in my life, and even from, in youth, friends who were not as open-minded maybe, that had me close myself, right? I think, like I said, I always had an open mind. I think I've always kind of been looking around, but I was so closed within myself that I was very careful as to where I stepped. So I think it's that fear of being judged and left out, because that's probably the most important thing people carry around in terms of what they value, right? I really believe it. I just wrote a blog article called Express Yourself, and I had to stop myself at 700 words, because if I went any further, it would have been a book, right? And it's a big topic for me, because I really believe that the people out there who aren't, like you said, why aren't they going to these groups? It's because, if they can't report back how the Eagles did, right? Because they were at a men's group. Well, there's going to be somebody that says something to them and can't deal with that, right? Because they're not dealing with anything that's deeper than surface, let alone, sorry, I missed the score of the Eagles game. By the way, not even trying to get away from sports. I'm so focused on building myself and, doing what I'm doing and building other people that I haven't even found time for sports in the last 3 or 4 years or 2 years, right? So when you start, really focusing on you and you stop caring about what other people think, that's a start. But again, got to share yourself, got to get vulnerable. Let's not miss that.
Well, that's huge. I mean, when you look at going into it and seeing what's mainstream and what you're allowed to talk about, it's almost like you've been given permission to say and act and talk about certain things, and other things are just to not be discussed. And in a men's group specifically, and I say men's group because this is an all male environment. How many fathers and how many husbands are lacking that in their life? And it's again, when I said earlier, it's a disservice to the self. This is the most detrimental aspect of being a man that I have seen in society. Men are fractured and they're on these little islands and they don't have a connection to get resources from. Like, hey, man, we can talk about all these things and you can get a better understanding about your life and role in all of these things. But if you don't talk about them, you don't know why you are who you are or doing the things you're doing. You're sort of just in a loop of, I don't even know. You're just there to exist. So I wanted to know, I mean, this is Oak and Rock Fatherhood. How have these changes and how has this growth impacted you in the family?
That's the best. That's the best. So I'm going to bare my soul here. Me and my wife were not doing well, right? I was doing really well financially. But when the lockdown hit and we were, and I wasn't getting those outlets, those social outlets, I wasn't getting out of the house. I had to talk about opening up yourself to men. I had to figure out how to open myself up to my wife again, how to be in an intimate, non-physical, intimate relationship with my wife. So the first, 6-9 months of lockdown, I was oblivious to it. Getting in the men's group really opened my eyes up to it, and things actually got worse at first because now, I was confronting this, and I like to solve problems like a lot of men do, and I was trying to turn screws, get out the ratchet, and get this bolt over here. But that wasn't working, right? So once I woke up to the fact that I was not leaning into my relationship with my wife, and because of that, also not my children as much as I should, I started to try to fix it. But with the men that I was around, they kept encouraging me not to fix it, right? Just continue to be the best you can be. And, we followed Jesus Christ in my group. And that was the example I kept leaning on, just getting closer to God, getting closer to the Bible, just filling my head and renewing my mind, renewing my eyes, renewing my ears so that I could really be a different person. So over the first 6 months of the year, I learned to let go of trying to fix my relationships. And by fixing myself and how I behaved and how Anthony, you talk about this a lot, your emotional self-control, right? Having that emotional self-control was the biggest thing in all this. Once I was able to just be at peace with my path and let other people be with me rather than trying to control the situation all the time, I was able to develop a relationship with my wife again. And just a few weeks ago, she said something to me that I hope encourages every man out there. My brother-in-law my sister-in-law, they could probably use some of the same help I had and my wife had. And my wife was saying how she wishes we could be with them because I need him to see what you've done, because I didn't believe that men could change. And you did, and now you're the man that I need you to be. And if there's nothing that's ever said to me again, that is it, right? If with her, right? I mean, that's all I needed to hear, because as long as that's what's in her mind, that's all that matters. So the relationship with my wife is healed, and I truly believe that's a miracle. That's something that I didn't believe could happen. And with my kids, that's when I started to go to men's group for my kids, right? Or at least that's why I said I did, right? That was my big front to the group to look tough and I got things under control. I'm here because my kids are important. I kind of leaned on that for a few months or so, until I opened up about what was going on with my marriage. So my kids were always first and foremost top of mind for me. I think we all see what's going on in the world out there. We need strong kids. And I saw, as part of this transformation, that I needed to create a much different version of me in my sons. So because I've been able to open up, because I've been able to let go, because I've been able to stop trying to control everything, I've been able to just let my family blossom. And it is a beautiful thing. I'm spending and looking forward to, I always spent time with my son, but I wasn't emotionally present. I was physically present. I was playing the games. I did the things like put the phone down and stuff like that, but my mind was elsewhere. My emotions were in turmoil. But once I was able to settle down inside and just let things happen, everything's become just a joy. I see a smile on my son's face, my 7-year-old, when he sees me now. Like, I don't remember seeing that before. I don't know what he was thinking before, and I don't want to ever go back there. I don't want him to ever go back there. But when he sees me now, he smiles like my infant does. And, that's just an amazing thing, guys. This is all possible. It takes a lot of work, but it's very, very possible.
No, that's good, Joe. With the emotional regulation, as you was talking about that, I was thinking, as you go through this process and you're changing and you're growing, right? You're having higher standards in your life. I don't know if this was with you, but I know with myself, right? There was a little bit of pushback from my family at first, from my wife especially. And I don't want to focus so much on that, but I want to ask you, how do we have men, or how do we explain to men that where they're at in their life is going to determine what type of group they get into, right? So we said before that it's fear that stops these men from speaking up. And I was thinking about that, and I thought that there's also another reason, right? There's an element of trust. So when we go into these groups, how do we know that they're legit, right? They're not snake oil salesmen. And how do we have men condition themselves to be aware of that? Because, you were talking before about conditioning in childhood, that emotional regulation. I think being, having emotional control is able to find a group that you fit into, find
Yes.
people who are good, right? That shows a lot about your character. So what would you tell younger guys or anybody wanting to get in, like what to look out for, how to be prepared, and how to really get the most out of it?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Anthony. And I'll start off by saying I'm not in the same men's group I was in when I started this, but it's the same kind of nuclear group, right? The group fractured in a good way because of size, and it gave people the ability to, find something that was more attuned to what they needed or what they wanted or what they could, give back, where they could give back. But going back to how do you find this? How do you have the awareness to go through the process to find the right group? I'm in sales, so it's a numbers game. I'm very comfortable with playing the numbers. I got lucky. I found a really good group of guys that I was very sure from the beginning that they were here for the right reasons, right? So I got lucky. So I don't have an experience of going around different men's groups to find the right one. I haven't been bitten, but I have heard those horror stories. So I got lucky, but it was hard to leave the initial group, right? I stayed with the core group and a couple others broke off and formed. The reason I stayed with the core group was twofold. One, insecurity. But secondly, part of my journey is not running away from insecurities, right? I mentioned professionally, I had to work through a lot of inner baggage to not go run to the next job to go get something emotional, an emotional satisfaction or an immediate gratification for something. And I kept myself in this group maybe a little longer than I needed to, but everything happens for a reason, right? that was part of my journey, was not running away from things because they were uncomfortable. But I did have an idea of what I was looking for. And when I found it, I went to it, and I'm glad I did. Now I'm part of a smaller group, which is definitely more valuable for me. I am a contributor, and in larger groups, which the initial group was, it's just hard to contribute. It's hard to have your voice heard. It's hard to do certain things, right? And at this point in my maturation with working with other men, it was time for me to, and since I was opening up more, it was time for me to get into a smaller group so I could continue to open up more, get more practice with that. So just follow your gut with where you're at in your journey. If your journey is to stay with a group because it feels uncomfortable, like me, do it, right? But also have the self-awareness that you do have real needs that need to be met, and you do have real things that you can contribute. And if they're not happening in that group, you don't need to be pigeonholed. And maybe you can break your group apart and start a new one, right? If you have a good group and you just need to do something, this is all about, it's dividing cells, right? We want to just keep replicating and replicating and replicating and replicating. And I have this vision where just this whole, I have a really good view of here. And it's just like, I just see every community here with small men's groups, all connected together, where we can draw from the masses, but also be close and tight knit and get real and personal with a smaller group of people and move around when we need to.
There's a phase during self-improvement, where they have whatever that curve is. It's, nothing, you think you know everything, and you realize that you know nothing. And a lot of men in the middle, they realize they've learned a few things. They've improved, they've grown, and then they get stuck there. Like they get trapped in that little, all right, I made some progress, time to take the foot off the gas. How are you keeping yourself, because you're running the Meaning Cast, you're running Marlo Caulfield, you're running these things where now you're putting the message out. So you're sending the energy. How do you ensure that you keep yourself humbled and still progressing as an individual instead of losing yourself to I'm so focused helping others again as to what right looks like that you stop being what's right?
Yeah. So, listen, I'm blessed to have a full-time job that I don't have to rely on these projects for money at this point. Right. So one of my friends asked me the other day, it was right after I released our podcast on Monday night. Hey, Joe, I see you're pumping out content, because I have been. And he says, what's your end goal? And very genuinely, I'll share with you all what I shared with Kevin. It's just to improve. That is it. And if I had to put something else on it, why improve? So I can get better guests and have better conversations and get deeper so that more people get more out of it. And it sounds cheesy. It sounds like a line that somebody's going to say because they want to look a certain way. But that is probably the first time in my life that I can say that, right? I have with endeavors before really looked for the spotlight, wanted to be on the stage, wanted to be the center of attention. And that's why I did a lot of things. But for these ventures, it is 100% because this is within me and I want to get it out. And it's for no other reason to just get better at it because I think it's valuable to do what I'm doing. I'm sharing information about myself and my journey, about other people's journeys. And there's a lot of men that need help. And I'm hoping that the content lands on the right ears and eyes. And that's the win, right? So the only way I'm going to get on more ears and into more eyes is to just keep improving. And if I'm improving, I'll attract more. And, by attracting more, more will happen and more people can be touched.
So who keeps the person keeping others accountable? Do you go back to your men's group and report to them like, hey guys, all right, here's my goals, here's what I'm trying to do. And then they ensure that you're hitting those goals?
Yeah, Zach, that's a really good question. That level of accountability is all internal right now. And I guess with my wife, right? I was not bringing my wife into this until about 6 months ago. And I realized how important that was. So Magda's definitely fully aware of what I do, when I do it, how I do it, and why I'm doing things. And she's been a really good governor. But that's a really good point, Zach. We're doing a men's group, a series called Every Man a Warrior starting on Monday next week. And I think it's going to be over the course of 10 weeks and go through a series of books and part of the series is accountability. So I think we're going to be stepping into that. And I think that's huge. We talk about that a lot. And we've actually had one of the guys at group come in and kind of say frustratingly, things need to happen, guys. We need to stop saying things and make things happen. And I think we're getting into that slowly but surely. And it's a big part of it. So hopefully we can keep that going, because accountability needs to be not just something you talk about. It has to be something you do. We got to get it on paper. We need to talk about it. So no, not enough of that probably. In terms of my endeavors though, I'm relying on myself, and I'm pretty much a stubborn SOB when it comes to, succeeding and not failing. So I tend to do a pretty good job at that, but you do need other people in there, because you cannot see everything. It's impossible. So yeah, you do have to have other people holding you accountable. So that's probably an area I could improve on.
Yeah, I mean, we see it frequently. There are times when, like, hey, Anthony, here's just before this call, I was like, hey, here's some of the goals I'm looking to shift towards, with finishing this year and where we're going. If I don't say that to him, I can miss that mark and nobody would care. But now that I've said it, it's like, hey, man, you said this. Now you've got to go do this because I'm watching you. And if you don't do the thing you said you're going to do, you don't really want it. Your reputation, your word, these things are just, it's fluff. You're trying to appear like somebody who does these things as opposed to being someone who does them. So that accountability, dude, I don't think you can put more emphasis. You can never put too much accountability or emphasis on the men around you to help keep you straight. It's not even as far as saying it's the buddy system.
Right.
It's just, that's your group. That's their purpose. Those men in your life are there for a reason, and you need to be in their life for a reason. And if you're not going to open up to them, what is the reason outside of saying, hey, Anthony, we're boys? Like, outside of that, like, what does that mean? What does that title do for you? If not, hey, you help keep me on the path, I help keep you on the path. Now let's go win together.
So let me add something to that, because something came up. So even though I haven't expressed specific goals and asked for feedback on them, I have a really good friend. His name's Jonathan. He's the gentleman that introduced me to the group and brought me to the first meeting. He's kept an eye on me, and he hears what I say, right? And without asking him to hold me accountable, he does. And in a meaningful way, a couple weeks ago, we were at lunch, and he noticed that I was trying to do, and I expressed to him, right? I got a center, right? I have all these talents. I have all these things I'm looking to do, and I'm doing too much, right? I got to figure out what is the channel that I focus on. And he was able to, over the course of a couple conversations, without kind of going through, hey, here's my list of goals, what do you think about them? He was able to help me get to the point, right? And help me get that focus. And so it's that type of accountability too, right? Where somebody's actually listening to you, and somebody sees you, and they're able to, in a empathetic and non-authoritarian way, in a very gentle, right? Guys, we can be gentle with each other. He was able to talk to me in a way that gave me confidence, assurance, focus, whatever it was a mixture of things. And I just thought about this yesterday. I was like, wow, I am just behaving differently when it comes to what I'm doing. And it probably has to do, that conversation probably has a lot to do with why I've been putting out a lot of content lately, is because I took what Jonathan said to heart, and he's holding me accountable, unspoken accountability, to take that conversation and not, waste that time that he invested in me and we invested in each other. So I think there's that type of accountability too, but I don't think it should be done without the other, where you're probably a little bit more specific. So I think, that's definitely a type of accountability that can happen as well. I hope did that make sense to the accountability thing, guys? Does that resonate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
So to shift it to fatherhood a little, want to get some thoughts on this idea. With my kids, I am a big proponent of supporting freedom, individuality. And I want my kids to be their own person. I don't want them to be influenced by the mob. So a lot of times I think of these men's groups, or any group in particular, right? I don't want them to just go in to be accepted, right? I want there to be a value system, something that's driving them. And what I've seen, from groups, men's groups, if there isn't, I don't want to say accountability, I don't think that's the right word, but if there isn't a set of standards, then the individuals who are in are going to slowly break down the system. And the reason I bring it up is because I want my kids to be able to see this, right? I don't want them to just go along with what everybody else is doing because somebody's louder or somebody's holding power over them. I want them to be aware of what good relationships look like, right? How people talk to each other, how they support each other. And I think this is something that men shy away from, right? They whatever you want to call it, it's a motherhood complex, right? You didn't get enough love from your mother when you were younger, however it may develop. But if men can start not only holding other men to standards, like, you need to be brave, you need to go fight evil, but you need to be honest, you need to be a good father. I think that you would see those connections even grow further, right? And this is something me and Zach are trying to do. What we're trying to bring to the table is show men that being a good father is going to, increase increase the family unit and the value that brings to society. So, I mean, I guess the question is, have you seen this as a deterrent? Have you seen any of this like toxic, I don't want to say toxic masculinity because I don't even believe in that term. I think that's a term where people who want to destroy masculinity will make us believe it's something. So I wouldn't even acknowledge that. But do you guys see this as something that is plaguing men right now?
Zach, I'll go first here. Absolutely. I mean, with everything going on with mask up, backs up, it's schools, stay in line, get on the bus now, finish up your lunch now, right? The things I'm hearing in the public schools. My son's not a part of the public school system. Yeah, absolutely. I think these are the things that create those little emotionally insecure robots and insecure themselves robots who are just totally conditioned to do whatever they are told because that's the path of least resistance. And a big part of my transformation here has been understanding my mind and knowing that my mind wants me to be comfortable at all times and to really resist that comfort. And I gotta, my wife is a blessing in that she is totally herself. And if there was ever an opposite, an opposites in a relationship, it was us before, recently, right? Where I was definitely whoever everybody wanted me to be. And she just didn't care, right? Like more than anybody I've ever seen. And it used to upset me before because it hurt us relationships. It hurt opportunities for us to socialize in certain ways. But I've totally, let go of all those fears of losing something because what I was losing actually was myself, right? So I totally see it in society, and it is a big part of how I parent and how we parent. We're very conscious of having conversations with our son who's in second grade. He's in a Montessori school. And by the way, just a little tangent, have the freedom to take advantage of the freedom we have if you can, right? Send your kids to some sort of situation where they won't be put in these boxes and punished for, not standing straight or doing this or that. There are other settings that you can put your kids in where they do help develop autonomous kids who do know how to make their own decisions. It is not in the public school system, but even there, right? We have to be very cognizant what's going on, what are the conversations he's having with his friends, what are the teachers saying, and we let him know what's weird, right? I mean, there are things happening in his school which we love, and we let him know it's weird, and he knows it's weird, and he's not participating, right? And he feels strong in that. So absolutely, Anthony, it is my number one goal is to send, the goal of all this, getting better at the podcast, helping other men. It's really about my self-development and sharing it with other people. And I want to see my sons walk into the world ready to do what they want to do, have the courage, have the courage to go ahead and step into that fully, take full responsibility and take full accountability for whether they succeed or that or not. When they fail, brush themselves off, not go to the path of least resistance, do it again, try something new, but don't abandon yourself. So that is huge for me. And I don't think that our culture is giving that. I think the families have to give that. And it starts with the man, because if it's not a joint front, I had Magda providing these values, but if I wasn't doing it with her, if there was resistance, the message wasn't being heard, right? So it's all about the men leading. It doesn't mean dominating your house. It means being a strong man, and that means being soft in certain areas. And it's not, telling your kids what to do. It's allowing them to make their own decisions and not controlling that, but creating the right environment where there's a lot of peace and they have the freedom to do what they want to do, because they're not going to get that in the world. And Anthony, I'll just say, your comment about 9 months ago, you said that when you were on the original, the very first meeting cast, right? That was one of the biggest things I took away from that conversation, was that your children know what it looks like to be manipulated, know what it looks like when they go out into the world, when they're manipulated or somebody tries to manipulate them. They see it, because that doesn't happen in the home, and their antenna goes right up. And that's the type of child I want to send out in the world as well. So sharing with men, right? That's important. And I got that from you, buddy. So thanks.
No, absolutely. Glad to hear it. I just want to add that, the strength of the group, or what benefits the group the most, whether that's a family or a men's group, is that we don't diminish who we are to fit in, right? That we can be an individual, we can be different. And that individuality is what's going to strengthen the group. So it's weird, right? It's kind of goes against what we often hear. Everybody wants to just fit in. But what that does is really lessen or weaken that group. So, I always come from the stance, same thing with my kids. I want them to be the strongest individual they can. And that's going to add value to whatever group they join.
Yeah. And so if you're part of a men's group, make them small, right? Because you can hide in small men's group, or have a good leader like Zac was last night, where he's calling people out and saying, get your camera on. We need to hear from you. Right. And
I have a lot of fun in the Zooms.
Yeah, but Zac, that wasn't a forceful thing, right? Like, I don't think you forced anything. You stepped up, you said what needed to be said, and then you gave them the decision to do it or not, right? Like, yeah, I don't think that there was anything wrong with that. If they didn't, they were going to do some soul searching on why they didn't. Why did the other guy do it? So, if you're in a group where you're able to hide, get out, find another group, because you're not going to grow. You need to open up yourself.
Just to be clear, Joe, he did threaten them with an EMP attack if they didn't show up.
I'm bringing the pain. Look, so the way, when I look at this and I hear it, it's incredible to see what can happen when a man chooses to put the gloves down and to pull the hand out of the glove, fighting against the world, and just shake another man's hand. Instead of saying, I got it, I'm tough, I'm strong, put it down, connect. When you can do that, you can grow infinitely further than you would by yourself. You'd have an accelerator, you'd have accountability, you'd have somebody that could boost you up. You have a network that can speed the process up. I don't know anything about crypto. I know a guy who has crypto. I don't know anything about shooting or prepping. It's not I have an app or I have a YouTube. It's I have a group, and in that group are skill sets. Now let's break this out. Anthony just said, by being a stronger individual, the group is stronger. By my dudes, the guys at FOE, each being good at their thing that they're interested in, and then chasing that to the level of excellence, they're now excellent preppers, excellent financial advisors and individuals, excellent fitness coaches. And that makes the group stronger, because each of us need to be good at these things. We don't have to be excellent at each. I don't need to be the professional of crypto. I need to know the guy who can make me where I need to be with crypto. I don't need to know, like I'm thinking, I got Anthony, I'm looking at Phil Foster. I don't need to be on stage as a bodybuilder. I do need to be as strong as I can get myself. And if I want to go to a stage, I have a guy that can take me to that level. But do that with everything, with fatherhood, with being a husband, these things that aren't quite so tangible like money and strength. These things that are a little intangible, they're based on relationships. So when I hear your story, Joe, not only does that smaller connection help you get that one-on-one and you don't get lost in the sauce like you were saying, you're also able in the proper group to form your small network where you can check in daily, but have access to others that you need if you were to need them.
Yep.
And so that's Joe, when you roll in and you say, hey, I'm in this men's group, Anthony and I immediately, you go to a certain category in our head. Here's a man working with men to be better. That's different than somebody coming off the street. I don't work with anybody, because now you're over here and we've got to teach you how to open up. We've got to work with you to become comfortable trusting us and understanding that there are some people on the internet in the world who will not take advantage of you, like your parents did, like the people around you did as a child. We're here to actually help you grow. No strings attached.
Yeah, and if you're taught to be taken advantage of, you will be taken advantage of, right? And I've definitely seen, looking back now that I have new eyes, that I allowed myself to get taken advantage of when I didn't need to, right? I could have been just like the guys and gals standing next to me who were having a better time at things. But the reason I was in my spot was because I let people do certain things to me as well. It wasn't, and that was all on me, right? I think there was a time where I would have used to look at, well, that person's taking advantage of me. No, it's now it's all on me. Everything's on me. And you said getting lost in the sauce. I'll add another thing in here, Zach. I've known for a little bit that I should probably stop drinking. And I don't even remember the last day I had a beer, but it was sometime in March or April. And that's another big thing, guys, right? There's these little things we do. Even if it's just a couple beers at a party, you're not connecting with people. You're not. If you're having a beer at night to cool down, take the edge off, you're losing the ability to connect with the people in your home in a meaningful way. I'm sorry, right? You don't have to have, you don't have to be an alcoholic or somebody who's, going to go through withdrawal from stopping, drinking to need to stop drinking, right? If you are not connected to your family, if you're not connected to your wife and children, if you're not connected to your community in a deep way, maybe that's something that you could put down too, because that's a numbing agent, whether you like it or not. And it only takes one to numb you enough to go say, you know what, I'm okay. So that's another thing. Don't get lost in the sauce in the group, and don't get lost in the sauce in general.
Dude, you're just preaching to the choir here. 505 days, baby. Anthony picked up the slack for me. He stepped up. So whether it's booze, food, porn, dudes are losing themselves to these numbing agents. When you go into a men's group, a proper group, not only do you become a better man, you become a better husband, a better father, because you're connected to everything. And once success begets success. So when you start, hey, I'm just going to be a better individual. I'm just going to work on getting my body right, or I'm going to work on being a better dad, or I really want to fix my marriage. Whatever the catalyst, whatever the starting point is, that leads to improvement in all the other things as well. So whether you started with your body or you started with your marriage, you're going to find yourself working on all of it. They're just like gateway drugs, so for many of us, I would say that if we can just get over that initial hurdle, you could finish the race, but you have to make that first lap. You've got to get that first rep in. And then from there, you have the momentum. It's just committing to it after that point and not getting, the dude is comfortable enough. He hit that middle point. He's like, oh, I'm good. I'm good enough. You're never good enough, man. But speaking of good enough, Joe, you are running the Meaning Cast. When or what is the angle with that podcast? And if people want to check it out, we've got links below. We've got links to your social media. We've got links to Marlo and Caulfield below. When they go there and they're like, hey, I think I'm good enough. I want to go further. When they go to the Meaning Cast and they go to your blog, what are they going to find? And what can help them go to that next level in life?
Yeah. So thanks, Zach. I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about this. So the Meaning Cast, I've just been following my heart, right? I've been inviting people on who are going to help me share my story and help me share things that I've learned with other people. So I had a gentleman who wrote a book called The Self-Driven Child. It's a very well-known book about how to create children who are self-driven and not under the thumb of their authoritarian figures, how to create environments for that, right? So I had Dr. Stixrud on and had a really nice hour-long conversation with him. And I think what you'll find different in my podcast than you might find in Dr. Stixrud's on a lot of different podcasts. I'm getting personal with people, right? This isn't about, I'm really not trying to put things on. I'm really trying to have genuine conversations. And he shared some really deep insights into his history and how he got into helping kids. And guess what? It's because he was an anxious, nervous mess, and he figured out that it was from things that he experienced in his childhood, and he turned his life into a devotion of helping people, right? So you're going to find me not just give you the information. I hope that I'm able to engage people that I have on the show in a way that helps them come out in a personal way, because again, we've been talking about it ad nauseum. You need to be vulnerable and share it. So I was able to get just a glimmer of vulnerability out of Dr. Stixrud, and that was, really special for me. I think it was really special for the audience too. And you're going to find me take on all different types of topics related to autonomy, not giving into authority, taking personal accountability. You're to see me I'm going to have a good friend of mine on, John Pate, on Monday. He called me up last night. He's like, Joe, I got to get my story out. This is a guy that lived on the streets. I just found out last night, I've been shaking this guy's hand for a year. He lost his fingers as a part of that, as an addict living on the streets, in and out of jail. And he's a successful barber now. For 5 years, he's been working full time as a barber. He's got his everything together. And you wouldn't know that this guy, I don't know. I got to find out what the heck's wrong with his fingers, because he's an amazing barber. And when you shake his hand, he's all there, right? So John Pate's going to be coming on to share his story. So you're going to see people that have come from a lot deeper than I have, and have come a lot further than I have as well, because I think John is one of these people who I aspire to live a little bit more like him, right? And I think it goes both ways. So I'm trying to have people on where I can show people that they have hope, right? One of my guests said about the Meaning Cast that your content is helping people understand that there is more to who they are than what they are right now. And so you're trying to catch people that are ready to step into themselves, to step into that bigger person or that deeper person. So I'm trying to give people a mirror, not entertainment. Good leaders hold up a mirror and say, look in it. People that are trying to deceive you may pretend they have it all figured out and they got this big fancy show and, I'm the source, right? Now I'm trying to give my guests a mirror, and hopefully there's somebody out there who can relate to that guest, so it looks like a mirror to them. And I know for me, it was seeing people that looked like me, sounded like me, had a lot of different, had a lot of the same qualities that I had. And to hear their situation, I needed to relate to people to see it. So every guest is hopefully going to relate to at least one person, maybe more, hopefully more. And that's really the goal, is to help people see themselves in the podcast through deep conversations and hard conversations as well.
That's what's missing in the world, right? The human element. We need more of that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, listen, there's nobody in this world who doesn't have a chance to pull themselves up. And I just know that everybody should have hope in themselves. And if they don't, go out and find it. And a way to do that is, if you're searching, my path was get my body and mind in order. When I started this journey about 2 years ago, I wrote a piece called New American Grit. And I had recognized through my failings that the new generation of American men and women would need to have much stronger minds than bodies, and compared it to how, in bygone days, which aren't here anymore, you kind of did need to focus on your body, right? To make it in the world. But now you don't. It really is your emotions and your mind. And if you don't strengthen them as a primary kind of activity, you're going to have trouble. So I got my mind in order. I understand my mind, why it does what it does, why it asks me to do things that I shouldn't be doing. I got my body in order. 40 years old, best shape of my life. The guys that I usually meet up at the gym this morning decided not to show up. So I went for a 4-mile run, right? Like, I'm not stopping. So get your mind in order, hold yourself accountable, get your body in order. And then the second thing is go out and serve. You're going to wonder after you get these things in order, what can you do? And you might not be a writer. You might not have a desire to start a podcast. But if you go out there and find something to do that is of service for other people, you will come out, because people will hold the mirror up for you, right? I was behind somebody in an alleyway, and it was a gentleman who had a handicap placard, and he was taking his groceries out, and I was about to be late for music lessons, and there was no way this guy was moving in time for me to get around him. It took a second. I needed to catch myself in the situation, but having the emotional stability that I have now rather than kind of getting tuned up and emotional about it. And I was able to think about the situation. I went right to serving. Got out of the car. Conrad's like, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to go help this guy." "Hey, it's this nice house you have, putting his groceries on the table for him," right? Go serve people because they're going to show you a picture of yourself. His daughter was just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this," right? And you'll see people react to you when you serve, and they'll tell you who you are, and that'll begin to shape maybe what you do next. So get yourself in order, start with your body and mind, and then go start serving. And then hopefully you can learn a little bit faster than I did that it's not about you, other than you are completely responsible for everything. And that includes how other people treat you. So don't control anything other than how you behave, how you think, how you act, and you're going to be fine. These are kind of simple recipes, but I think everybody can do it. But I'll throw the service one in there as just kind of the one that I think is a little bit of a twist there that I hope people can go out and just do something today. It's Thanksgiving, right? There's a lot of people who are looking for a little help right now. Go out and do something. There's plenty of help to be given. It shouldn't be too hard.
Definitely well said, bro. Give thanks for more humanity in the world. That's what we need. And as always, man, it is excellent talking with you. Excellent speaking with you, hearing perspectives and ideas. Open Rock Fatherhood. Definitely hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we look forward to future conversations. Take care.
Absolutely, gentlemen. Thanks so much.